I hate to break it to you, Ben, but I don't think you'll be able to find connections between every sketch made by the sketch comedy duo Chris and Jack. I'm on the first flight out in the morning.
Wait. Say that again.
I said I'm catching the first flight out tomorrow morning.
And what's the verb of that?
Catch.
No, the noun.
Flight.
Right, and what's the verb of that?
Fly.
Right, and are you staying here or?
No, I'm going to catch a first flight out in the morning.
Oh, okay, well, bye.
Bye.
Wait. Say that again.
Bye?
And say that again?
Bye-bye?
Right, and can you say the first word from before and then, like, together?
Fly bye-bye?
Fly bye-bye. The fly bye-bye system. That's where Jenna sent a message to get help in the space battle in Future Ex-Girlfriend.
It's transmitting with enough time to reach the fly-bye-bye system.
And that's where the alien said Paxdolia is located in Space Escape.
Paxdolia and the fly-bye-bye system?
Which would mean... Gotcha.
Here we go again. But I actually do have to catch the first flight out.
So, let's go. See you later. Dave, one of the few recurring characters on the Chris and Jack channel, and the only one whose sketches form an explicit storyline. We first see Dave in Abduction, where he gets abducted by aliens.
So it's Dave?
When he returns to Earth, Dave records a video titled Undeniable Proof of My Alien Abduction.
Hi, my name is David Peterson. I was abducted by aliens on June 1st, 2017, and this is my irrefutable evidence.
The story continues into Mind Wipe, where Agent 17 has to now wipe Dave's mind to protect him from the aliens.
You don't want this in your brain, all right? Because if those gray space bastards find out you still remember them, they won't try a second wipe.
At the end of Mind Wipe, Dave gets abducted by aliens again.
I assume what I witnessed is you die. It's a chance that you got teleported and there's gonna be another sequel, but we'll see.
And his story continues in the VR miniseries Space Escape, where we see Dave get transported onto an alien ship. Here, he meets Cooper, an alien who was fighting against the aliens who abducted Dave before being captured.
Give me your name again. That's right, I actually never gave it to you in the very
Oh, okay.
And it's not a word, it's a feeling. Here.
If I have trouble pronouncing that, is Cooper okay?
Oh, Cooper's fine.
All right.
Dave and Cooper use a memory projector, and with this, we see Cooper's moments before his capture, which we can see in its entirety in the bonus sketch One Last Goodbye.
Hey, Pep Pep. Maybe we're gonna catch that game some other time.
Which ties back to Abduction with a picture of a Brabs for Tips for Bips. The listing of these connections is a bit like saying, did you know Tony Stark was in Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, and Iron Man 3? It's not the most interesting form of connections, so let's dig a bit deeper. In Mind Wipe, Dave mentions that since the abduction, he had started peeing blue.
I've been peeing blue for a month!
Giving us our first connection to another sketch outside of explicit character reappearances, as Travis Shepard in Movies in Space peed blue after using alien drugs. Also in Mind Wipe, Agent 17 reveals a picture of his alien wife, who's from a race of aliens that first appeared in If Scrooge Stepped In, and is named as a Brazingian Mind Creeper.
We were trying to stop the Brazingian Mind Creeper invasion!
And later appears again in Plan B. Agent 17 himself,
Agent 17.
later returns in Save the Watermelon.
Nice work, Agent 17.
And Clearance Level Bread
Clearance level bread.
is later referenced in Aliens Have Finally Responded. In Space Escape, the memory projector is also used on Dave, giving us flashbacks to Dave's earlier life, which includes bits from Trolls These Days, where Dave meets Burl Squig the Troll.
Boom, Dave! Boom, Dave! My riddle has you ensnared.
And of Chris's character from Dawn Life, a web series Chris and Jack made in 2008, strongly suggesting that Dave from the Abduction series is the same character as Chris's character from Dawn Life, where his name was Mike.
Hey everyone, I'm Mike.
So Dave is Mike. How do we explain this? This frame from Space Escape is not the first reference to Dawn Life in the Abduction series. In Mind Wipe, after Agent 17 fails to wipe Dave's mind, he attempts to play the whole thing off as a prank.
It's me, your buddy who used to prank you all the time in college. Ah!
You're not Josh!
Get the hell out of here! Hey, no, hey!
In the web series Dawn Life, Josh was a roommate of Mike's.
I've been getting along great with a new roommate. Hey, Josh! Dude. Is that my deodorant?
It's a little tough to explain away Dave as a nickname of Mike, or vice versa, when Dave's full name is given at the beginning of Mind Wipe as...
Are you David Randall Peterson?
And Mike's full name is given in Dawn Life as...
Mike Sanders here.
Well, frick. That really screws everything up. I mean, it's not like they ever made another thing where Chris played a character who went by both the names Dave and Mike and also interacted with aliens. I better start taking this board down. Oh, wait! In the podcast pilots episode, Space Code 96451 or something, Chris plays a man in witness protection on an alien planet, and first identifies himself as Mike while recording a voice message.
Hi, Cindy, this is Mike.
This name is kept in secret. Publicly, his name is David, at least while in witness protection.
Yeah.
Hey, Gravy!
It's David. Yeah.
Oh, hey, yeah, David. You ready for dinner's up?
The alien frequently mispronounces David as Gravy before correcting himself.
Hey, Gravy, I just wanted to double check.
David.
And he acknowledges that the Mike identity is a secret.
How secret is your presence here?
Okay, should be.
Like, I know that you're David Gravy,
right?
AKA Mike. Shh. Shh. Not gonna tell anybody.
In reference to keeping his identity a secret, Chris's character says,
Keep calling me Gravy. I realize I'm quick to react that I want one of my other names, David or Mike. Mike being obviously my given middle name.
That's the secret one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
In another podcast episode, Aliens Among Us, Chris interviews an alien called Gorbosh. And we know it's Chris doing the interview, and not just an unnamed character played by Chris, because when Gorbosh explains the purpose of a pipe cleaner, Chris says,
That might be common knowledge on my planet. That honestly might be just a thing that I, Chris, didn't know, that a lot of other people know.
It's explained that this interview was set up by a mutual friend, Chris's college roommate, named Mike.
Part of the reason this contact was so easy to make is I was a foreign exchange student, and I went and I lived on Earth. I was there in like the early 70s. That's how I know Mike, yeah.
Yeah, because Mike, just for those listening, Mike is my college roommate. He essentially told me like I should come check out this planet, and then said that I would that he knew Gorbosh.
In the episode, the full name of Chris's college roommate is said aloud only by the alien, and is given as
Mike Skeezy is the freaking man. Like that guy's got your back.
Although, remember that in Space Code, aliens commonly mispronounce human names, like
Hey Gravy!
It's David.
So Mike Skeezy isn't too far off from Mike Sanders. But look, elephant in the room, why did Mike change his name to Dave after college? Well, in the universe of Dorm Life, the Dorm Life web series episodes are videos that the characters are recording and posting online to be viewed by the public.
So they gave us all these webcams to kind of keep you up to date with what's going on. So week 1, college has been awesome.
And since we're already moving away from explicit canon, here's another theory. Maybe after graduation and the conclusion of the in-universe series of videos, Mike wanted to change his name to have a more private life and avoid drawing attention from people who watch those videos.
Hey everybody, Mike here. One last time.
So he changed his name from Michael Sanders to David Randall Peterson. And thus concludes the Dave is Mike theory. Now let's go back to the board because there is so freaking much, and this video is like how long? And we've only done like this much. What is I'm gonna have to split this into 2 parts. Space Code 96451 or something gives us our connection to the Wish part of the CJCU.
You said there's a bunch of security measures. Just go over it one more time.
Okay, every bush comes with a laser grid, and when you exit the bush, the laser grid is tripped, and the only way to dismantle all of a bush's security features is with wishes.
The perfect wish to outsmart a genie.
I shall grant you 3 wishes.
That friend you haven't seen since high school.
When he wished to be invisible.
Be careful what you wish for.
Is this truly what you wish? To live forever?
Fruit Whoops.
I wish I had a different life!
Sentient Drum Pad.
My wish came true. A word comes through with every hit.
And the truth about making a wish.
I'm here to grant you 3 wishes.
Feature characters making wishes. While there aren't any explicit connections across these sketches outside of the concept of wishing, I believe that they allude to some sort of wish-granting organization that deals in either blood or sadism, and that Keith and Mr. Yussman at the very least work for them.
I've been having like a really tough time at work lately. Still going around to everyone and granting them wishes. Why would you promise me something that you couldn't
Look, I was
follow?
under a ton of pressure at work. We have like a quota system, so like, you know how it is.
Well, can I have my blood back?
I already spent it.
Quick sidestep. In the truth about making a wish, Keith mentions he's granted a wish to make the Infinity Gauntlet real.
What do other people wish for?
World peace, Infinity Gauntlet.
Which connects to Avengers Uber Pool.
Please, sir, take us to the Infinity War.
Wow.
In which we see Jack as an Uber driver. And in the Funny or Die web series Chris and Jack wrote called Ice Cream Therapy, Jack plays an
Nosh car pickup for Sarah.
Nosh car driver, and at the end of the episode, he says he plans on launching a dating app.
It's a new dating app. You open it up and it tells you the date.
Is this the world's worst dating app? No. That's Offspring, the app that Chris and Jack launched in the world's worst dating app.
Offspring is a dating app that lets you get to know someone's parents before even going on the first date.
I posit that these sketches follow the same character as it moves from Uber to knockoff Uber to launching a dating app, then pivoting to a different kind of dating app. Now there's a couple of ways to get to the Chris and Jack side of the universe, and the obvious way is through the concept of wishing, since in that friend you haven't seen since high school, Chris wishes to become invisible. But there is an arguably even more explicit connection through Fanzane, which is the podcast pilot episode where Chris and Jack talk about the movie The Phantom. In Fanzane, they have a segment where they talk about the things they found distracting while watching the movie.
Perfect transition to one of the recurring segments on Fanzane. Hold on, there's a song. Did you find it? Distracting.
And in Space Code, the sentient talking wind had this to say about certain aspects of the narrative.
Why wouldn't you become more like us? Rather than having us become more like you, I'm very distracted by this. I find this very distracting.
If you like distracting things, we should talk about a podcast I listened to the other day. That's on a tangent.
And through the same segment, you could very loosely draw a connection to ADR, which is up here, out of the frame.
I'm not saying ADR like kills a movie for me. I'm just saying like I find it very distracting.
Yeah, I hear you.
So unironically, Fanzane is one of the most important things that connects this universe together. And now let's get to Chris and Jack. And here's something important about how I treat this universe, okay? It is my firm belief that every sketch where Chris and Jack plays Chris and Jack follow the same Chris and Jack, unless one of them dies or both of them die or the universe explodes at the end of the sketch. I'm going to go into some detail about how some of these sketches have further connections between each other, but very quickly, here's a list of sketches where Chris and Jack are explicitly playing characters named Chris and Jack. I Need It Yesterday.
Chris!
Clone FOMO.
Jack.
That friend you haven't seen since high school.
Chris.
Missing Words.
Jack.
Scams really are getting ridiculous these days.
Chris.
The July 6th Park Saga.
Jack.
Chris.
Jack.
Chris. Jack.
Chris. Jack.
Plan B.
Chris.
Groundhog Daying.
Jack.
Sci-fi movies never pick the right year.
Chris.
Smell good no matter what your daily routine is.
Jack.
When the ADR is way too obvious.
Chris.
Continuity errors.
Jack.
What's my line?
Chris!
And a vital message from your future self.
Jack.
And the sketches where they're essentially playing Chris and Jack but they aren't explicitly named in the sketch themselves are the perfect time to send an email, the worst way to open presents, this could be a podcast, no bad ideas, it's a complicated palindrome, people who always finish your sentences, there has to be an easier way to automate savings, and so many questions during a movie. But also, because I love the Auntie Donna logic, I also extend this to the real world Chris and Jack, where we pretend that the fictional events that happen to them in the sketches also happen to them in real life. But I can already hear you shouting, how could Chris have been a successful juggler as a teenager if he didn't learn how to juggle until Groundhog Daying?
Have you learned like a bunch of like cool tricks and stuff?
Oh, dude.
Which couldn't have occurred until after his invisibility wish wore off on his 30th birthday.
On his 30th birthday, the wish finally wore off.
Well, let's not forget that at the end of That Friend You Haven't Seen Since High School, we see that Chris has some power over his visibility, whether that's through wishing again, or if he learned how to toggle it off.
Chris disappeared once more.
But most importantly, let's not forget that in I Need It Yesterday, Chris Smith discovered time travel. So what, did he travel back through time and teach his younger self how to juggle and become visible again?
Chris was all like, oh, I need to visit past Chris with a dire message.
Or did he send his consciousness back through time to live in his 15-year-old body with all the knowledge that he'd gained as an adult?
I'm wondering too, if we figure out how to send stuff back in time, maybe then we can live a whole lifetime learning everything and then send ourselves back in time to then send the report back in time. Do you know what I'm saying?
I believe there's a third option, for which we even have explicit visual and historical evidence. In I Need It Yesterday, Chris uses Holocubes, and we know that they can be used to store and deliver information, and that Chris has the ability to send things back through time. And if we go back to 2010, on a video on Chris's old juggling channel, what do we see?
Chris Smith.
So here's the theory. In 2024, Chris Smith discovered time travel. He packaged all the knowledge he'd acquired, how to juggle and how to turn visible, into these holocubes that he then sent back through time for his youngest self to exploit.
Think of the time ripples this will cause!
The time ripples that this caused could explain any inconsistency that we find throughout this universe. So to me, this seems like a very logical theory. But now that we all agree that every sketch where Chris and Jack play Chris and Jack follows the same Chris and Jack, let's talk about the sketches where Chris and Jack play alternate Chris and Jacks. I'm talking clones and parallel worlds. In sci-fi movies Never Pick the Right Year, Chris and Jack are scientists who meet a sentient gas cloud from the far, far future who destroys the world. So let's say this is a parallel world. One of many, as we'll find later. In the feature film, Me, Myself and the Void, Chris and Jack play alternate Chris and Jacks.
My actual friend Chris, everybody. Hi, everybody.
But they have different last names, so they're not Chris Smith and Jack DeSena.
Welcome to the stage, Jack Dennis.
But it is still connected to the White Room.
Did I live a good life?
It was okay, middle of the road. Like a 4 out of 10.
How was your life?
Like a 4 out of 10.
But now let's enter the Chris and Jack clone theory. In Are My Clones Having Fun Without Me?, Chris mentions that Jack's clones have been around for 5 years.
It's been a fun 5 years.
But then, in When the ADR is Way Too Obvious, Jack mentions that they
met through a Craigslist ad and have only been roommates for a few months. We're total peas in a pod.
But he says this moments before dying at the end of the sketch.
No!
So which is it? Did Chris and Jack know each other for at least 5 years and have clones? Or did they only know each other for a few months before Jack dies? Well, my theory is that Clone FOMO is the branching off point, where after Chris and Jack retired their clones, the clones went their separate ways until different pairs subsequently moved in with each other. This could further support why they feel like they're such close friends despite only knowing each other for a few months.
Oh yeah, totally. Best friend Jack.
Because if they were clones that were only made a few months ago, then technically they only knew each other for a few months because that's how long they were alive for. But because they're clones of Chris and Jack, they have that lifelong friendship.
I love you. I love you too.
On top of that, maybe the reason Chris got so many missed calls from his mother
5 missed calls from my mother who works at the big observatory. I better call her back after this.
was because she was trying to call each and every one of the Chris clones in her contacts, but mistakenly called the same Chris over and over. Ultimately, this means that the Jack who died at the end of ADR was a clone, and that the real Jack is A-OK. Well, actually no, because canonically the real Jack died in a car crash.
I didn't die. I was just in that car accident where I flipped off a cliff and fell 16 times and then woke up in a cloning facility and again.
But the main clone who took over the real Jack's place is A-OK. In contrast, we have another pair of Chris and Jack roommates who supposedly lived longer than a few months.
We have lived together for
way too long. Right.
I theorize that there's a prequel to this in the form of Missing Words, where we see Chris invite Jack to become roommates.
Can Jack be our new roommate, please?
I guess.
Yeah! Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you.
Explain.
In this sketch, Chris and Jack rely on each other to finish each other's sentences.
I woke up one morning and completely lost ability to say word.
And I can't say the word of. So, of course, it made sense for us to pair up.
Which has the natural evolution, where they end up being unable to not finish each other's sentences.
You ever noticed how often we finish each other's sentences? Can we actually
stop? I don't know. Sure doesn't
seem like it.
For more evidence that Chris and Jack had run-ins with the clones, the first of the Cash App sponsored videos, Scams Really Are Getting Ridiculous These Days, features Chris and Jack meeting an alternate universe Chris.
I'm you from elsewhere in the Chris Smith multiverse.
Our Chris says,
I just bought a new pair of pants. I'd love to see how they look on me from another angle.
Oh, for sure.
Chris is pretty normal about seeing another version of himself, and his request kind of seems like something someone would say if they'd had clones of themselves that were able to do that before. But he also says,
See, this is why I should never trust myself.
Alluding to a fallout with his clones. Finally, the Chris and Jack clones and time travel shenanigans collide in a vital message from your future self, where Chris exclaims,
Oh my god, a Jack clone?
Nah, it's the time travel thing this time.
Oh.
And we see Chris and Jack from the future travel back to meet their past selves. This sketch also connects to sci-fi movies, as Chris once again brings up his problem with specified future dates.
You said you're from what year again? 2065?
Yes.
This is a thing of mine. Like, it bugs me so much when they do this in sci-fi movies. They always lowball that date.
So what date in the future are you guys from? We were gonna go with unspecified. Smart.
Now let's start to explore the connections between the Chris and Jack subset of the universe and the other sketches. Although fair warning, most of the connections in this video are akin to the theory that the kid in Iron Man 2 is Peter Parker, in that it's inexplicit and you kind of have to squint to really see the connections. In Groundhog Daying, Chris says he might have been placed in the time loop because he
refused a hitchhiking old crone.
Presumably the same crone in Body Swap.
A mysterious old crone made Michael live as Paul, and Paul as Michael.
While Paul was in Michael's body, he tried eating blueberries and found that they didn't match his expectations.
You taste differently.
Blueberries sucked in your mouth.
Just for fun, I believe Chris's Instagram short, Guy Who Loves Strawberries Finds the Perfect Strawberry Then Realizes It's Not the Perfect Strawberry, in fact depicts Paul in Michael's body trying out different berries to see what tastes different. A Jack character named Paul later appears in The Digital Afterlife Isn't Quite What You Expected.
Welcome, Paul, to Eternity.
And there's nothing that contradicts it from being the same Paul years after the body swap incident. The concept of being stuck in a work-in-progress digital afterlife that sucks was previously brought up in Future FOMO.
Like, there's all this talk of, like, you know, consciousness uploaded to a hard drive stuff.
So they're gonna be people who have like sort of weird, crappy half consciousnesses in like stuck in heaven, digital purgatory. I don't know.
Future FOMO was the first episode in Chris and Jack's podcast Parts of Podcast, but we can see Jack's ambition to start a podcast begin in the worst way to open presents.
Pretty confident it's not a Blue Yeti microphone, which is a little bit of a bummer because I did drop a lot of clues about that this year, but just if we were going to start a podcast.
He later realizes this goal when he gets the Blue Yeti microphone and starts a podcast with Chris, Jack and Dean, and Britannic in This Could Be a Podcast! In That Friend You Haven't Seen Since High School, we learned that Chris was invisible for 15 years.
So yeah,
What am I looking at?
That's me in Nepal right there.
Okay.
That's me in Paris.
Cool.
I believe that it's in this period of his life that he did some yoga and was handcuffed to the guy who's handcuffed to someone doing yoga. We also learned that he had a friend called Greg, who he hasn't seen since Jack's 21st birthday party.
Are you and Greg still tight? You guys still hanging?
Oh man, I haven't seen Greg since my 21st, I think.
What happened to Greg? I theorized that Greg vanished from Chris and Jack's life when he was recruited by a secret government agency, as seen in Save the Watermelon.
We're out of compressed air. Thanks a lot, Greg. Get your orders in on time.
And we later see him in the flesh doing some action hero stuff in Ask Me Something Only I Would Know.
Trust me, Greg. You gotta take him out.
But we're not done with Chris and Jack. Everyone knows that they started July 6th Park.
Welcome to July 6th Park. July 6th Park.
They had not heard of July 6th Park.
July 6th World.
July 6th Park?
J6P.
Welcome to July 6th Park.
The film franchise fan holiday with a story arc spanning 7 sketches and a podcast.
How do we get July 6th Park on the calendar as a federal holiday?
The holiday was also referenced in Plan B.
July 6th.
The perfect time to send an email.
Gotta get past July 6th Park, so maybe.
Obviously.
And by George Lucas, and George Lucas is a time traveler, and I actually wrote Star Wars.
It's huge and everyone celebrates. It's called July 6th Park, and that one's really big.
In that same sketch, Kenneth thinks he's on a hidden camera show.
Is this a hidden camera show? Because I'm not doing that again.
Obviously referring to The Chester Show, from Your Whole Life as a TV show.
There are hidden cameras everywhere, like there.
Starring Chester.
Chester, your whole life has been a TV show.
Who I theorize we later see again after the show is cancelled.
Nah, show's definitely cancelled. Everyone moved on.
Pursue my dreams.
As he ponders about the missed opportunities in the show in definitely a real movie trope.
You're gonna say it's a dumb dream.
I won't say it's dumb, go ahead.
That thing from the movies happened where it's like, I'm talking to my arch rival, and then he's like, hey! Hey!
In I Need It Yesterday, Jack mentions that he's been seeing a therapist.
I talked to my therapist, and they said they have some openings coming up.
So just for fun, let's say it was the same therapist from the Friends in Real Life sketch, The Therapist. The Holocubes, as seen in I Need It Yesterday, are also seen in Future Ex-Girlfriend, where we see Phil before his breakup.
One sec, love you. So we break up?
Please, Phil, hurry. The fate of humanity.
We later see Phil after the breakup in checking into the Heartbreak Hotel.
Love you.
Hi, Phil. Welcome to the Heartbreak Hotel.
In Future Ex-Girlfriend, we find out that there's an alien invasion in the future.
6 years ago, aliens arrived on Earth.
And that the humans have to transmit a message to the fly-by-by system.
It's transmitting with enough time to reach the fly-by-by system.
Which is later mentioned again in Space Escape.
A what?
A Paxorlian destroyer. Paxorlia in the fly-by-by system?
We witness an alien invasion in a Guy Who sci-fi short film. But my theory is that this is a second invasion after the one in Future Ex-Girlfriend, because of the farmer. This guy sees an alien ship land in his cornfield, and he's only mildly annoyed about it. Perhaps because he's already had an alien ship land in his cornfield before, and now he knows how annoying it is to replant it afterwards. If you subscribe to this theory, which you really need to if you want this universe to connect, because this is the level that a lot of these theories necessary to draw connections are at, then we can tie in English, please. Since we find out that the aliens in a Guy Who sci-fi short film were defeated with a computer virus. In English, please, the bad guys were defeated with a computer virus.
I'm gonna upload a virus into English, please.
Now, they never outright say who the bad guys are in English, please, so maybe they will find the aliens in a Guy Who sci-fi short film. But back to the Holocubes. We first see Holocubes in Movies in Space. The credits song from Movies in Space
Verse.
is an in-universe song that we later hear again in Universe.
Verse.
In Universe, Phil makes mention of Corplox,
Guess I'll see you in Corplox.
which is the planet Chris visits in Aliens Among Us.
I don't know if they're going to be able to get all the way out here to Corplox to be able to buy your designs.
And also potentially the planet Travis Shepard's visits in Movies in Space, but we'll get to that. Universe is the in-universe presentation of the footage we got from Xenix and Phil in Aliens Have Finally Responded. Xenix and Phil's ship eventually finds its way into the possession of a space crew, as seen in Secret Alien, and was also at one point used for a space tour in Guy Who got separated from the Space Tours group and is now lost in an alien ship. Aliens Have Finally Responded introduces the CJSA, the Chris and Jack Space Agency. I actually don't know if it's confirmed that's what CJSA stands for, but I assume that's what it is. But why are Chris and Jack involved in space and alien stuff? I mean, we know at some point that Chris starts a space travel show and interviews Gorbash the alien, but they go from very grounded activities like starting a film franchise holiday, and also time travel and clones, I guess. And then they go to space to meet aliens? Feels like it kind of came out of nowhere, right? Like the Locust stuff in Jurassic Park Dominion? Well, guess what? I didn't see that movie, but I did see the foreshadowing for the CJSA when Chris said that he snuck into government facilities while he was invisible.
But there were perks too. I mean, I could go into movie theaters for free, could poke around secret government facilities, like ride space shuttles, super easy to steal stuff.
And that he stole space shuttles while he was stuck in the time loop.
Have you ever stolen a car? Car, tank, space shuttle?
In the video, Did You Eat My Cupcakes? Chris mentioned that there'd been alien sightings in the neighborhood.
You thought about aliens maybe? There's been a lot of sightings in the neighborhood that's going up.
Yeah, I have a friend that said that
like 5 of his 6 cupcakes were stolen. Yeah, by an alien probably.
In Podcast Pilot Season 3, Episode 2, Chris and Jack discuss how they'd handle meeting aliens. And in the 12 Days of Chris and Jack, Chris actually gets abducted by aliens.
What's wrong?
Abduction?
Oh.
I believe that all of these events are what eventually led to the establishment of the CJSA, as part of which Chris starts a space travel show where he lives with and interviews Gorbash the alien. But ultimately, the Chris and Jack Space Agency seems like the logical next step in their world, especially when you consider that in The Sky's the Limit, we see an astronaut with the name Chris on his suit who's distraught to find out that space travel is impossible. I'll explain why this is actually an alternate universe in part 2 of this video. But the takeaway here is that across universes, Chris Smith dreams of visiting space, and in our Prime Chris and Jack universe, he does. But before we end part 1 of this video, it's time for one last theory. Do the Corplox race live on Corplox? In the podcast, Aliens Among Us, Chris visits the planet Corplox.
I don't know if they're going to be able to get all the way out here to Corplox.
And in Movies in Space, Travis Shepard visits a planet home to the Corplox race.
The Corplox race are a kind, gentle people who have given me a warm welcome.
But they never actually call the planet in Movies in Space Corplox. It's only identified as
Planet CXV339.
Now, my assumption is that that's the name Earth gave it, but then the Corplox race probably called their planet Corplox. But then again, we're the human race, and we don't live on the planet human. Although it would be crazy if one day we meet aliens and just coincidentally they call their planet human and there's like nothing that would have influenced the same name being used. Now if we look at the facts, Gorbash says
a Corplaxian day, which is 34 hours.
And then Eepgog says,
well, our sun is farther away.
So maybe that lines up. I'm really bad with astronomy, so I don't know if like a sun further away makes your day longer, who knows? Not me, someone would know actually. In our time, the steel that pipe cleaners are made from is crazy valuable on Corplox.
The steel, the little band of metal that runs on the inside of a earth pipe cleaner,
yes, right,
is incredibly valuable here.
Really?
Yeah.
In the unspecified future, when Travis Shepard visits planet CXV339, the Corplox race have only just reached the technological advancements of where we are at now.
This planet was selected for study, since they've advanced to where we humans were in the early 21st century.
So that kind of checks out too, like maybe they've only just reached the Copper Age, Steel Age, I don't know what age, I'm bad with history as well. And finally, both of the aliens make art using basic primary colors.
Could I see one of your pipe cleaner necklaces?
Yeah, so check this one out. This is, okay, this one is a red one, and then it's tied around a yellow, there's a yellow one tied there.
I see the yellow one there,
and then and then another
twisted.
red one. So it goes red, red, yellow, and you twist together the ends.
But I just saw some colors and beeps. Did no one else see it?
And that's it for part 1. Part 2 is already completely scripted, so hopefully this video set the ground rules for how I approach the CJCU, because part 2 is full of even crazier theories, like how Bill from Bill's Biscuit and Basket business is inventor. So stay tuned for part 2, which if all goes well should hopefully come out sometime around unspecified future date. But, you know, we'll see.